Well, I'm hoping to finish the general suggestions for generating bodhicitta that Geshe Dorje Damdul gave us years ago, and gosh, it's been probably 2 months since I was on this list, so there's 2 more that I want to hopefully finish today. And they're all vast and profound suggestions, general but profound. So number 7, once again, I've changed never to the best of our abilities, not to be content with learning, reflection, and meditation on bodhicitta and the wisdom of dependent origination and emptiness. So not to be content. So what does that mean? Well, bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness, which is another name for ultimate bodhicitta, a dependent origination. Well, if we're going to realize them in our mind streams and practice them, we're going to need to hear, think, and meditate on them. There's no way around it. And it's not just for a year. It's not just for 10 years. They say it's going to be for eons. And learning or hearing, so we start off with, these are the 3 ways in which we get to eventually realize all the aspects of the Dharma. So this just doesn't refer to bodhicitta and dependent rising and emptiness, but all the teachings of the Buddha. We need to hear and listen to them. We need to contemplate, reflect on them, how they, integrate, how we can use them in our lives, and then to the feeling of a clarity and a feeling, a flavor in the mind that we then single-pointedly focus on. So that is necessary not just for these 3 particular topics. To think about them and to listen to them is that a lot of the Dharma materials, the language is really new and really unfamiliar for all of us when we first hear it. And so part of listening and hearing to them, whatever form, that could be receiving direct teachings from, teachers in person, audio, video, reading books, is first, I find that getting familiar with the language, starting to get familiar with the concepts, because the Buddha's teachings sort of build on one another. They have very strong relationships to each other, but there's a familiarity of the language that makes it, very important to do in the beginning. And what Venerable says, there's a teaching that we have in the SAFE program. She's got a talk on the SAFE program that says how to listen to the teachings. And the benefit of listening to them is that we feel encouraged about them. If we want to meditate on them and contemplate them, we have to be able to know what it is that we're going to meditate on. And to know what to meditate on, we have to hear and listen to the teachings. If nobody explains to us how to meditate and we invent our own way, then we're going to be in big trouble. We are still in samsara because evidently we have not been hearing, thinking, and meditating on the teachings. She kind of puts it in that kind of practical perspective. So getting the concepts down, getting the language, taking notes, hearing them over and over and over again. So even the first step of realizing the Dharma is not to think that if you've heard it once or twice that you're finally going to get it and you're going to be able to have some deep understanding. We're talking about many, many, many times. When you see, Geshe Zopa, who is 90 years old and comes to the teachings on precious human life that His Holiness the Dalai Lama gives, he has taught them for decades and perhaps has some, who knows what level of realization he most certainly probably has about it, but he comes to them again and hears them again. So if Geshe Zopa can do that, we certainly are in a position to do that also. So first we have the hearing and thinking. And then we have the reflection or the contemplating, which we can do simultaneously as we're starting to learn about the Dharma, is that we take them into our practice session. And this is where we start looking at the Buddha's teachings and start asking questions like, how do these apply to my life? How is this particular point in the Dharma, whether it be bodhicitta or emptiness or precious human life or the disadvantages of cyclic existence, how does this hold true for me? How does it make sense? Can I use these teachings in my life to decrease my destructive ways of thinking, my destructive habits of body, speech, and mind, and to increase my good and wholesome qualities? how does this work for me? So putting the teachings under the power of not only reasoning, but also as direct experience, then moves us into the category of not just hearing and reading about them, but then thinking about them, reflecting and integrating them into our lives. So as we go on, there will be times in our practice, and I can honestly say I've maybe had one or two of these in the past 13 years, where we get this kind of clarity, this sense of connectedness to the teachings, that they've really become a part of our thinking. They're like becoming more spontaneous. They arise when we meet things in our lives, difficulties, and there's an understanding that's not just intellectual, but is somehow integrated into our minds. And there's a feeling or a flavor of the mind that arises when you go on to the meditation cushion and think about these teachings. And this is what, according to Geshe Zopa and the Lam Rim, is that this is what actual meditation is, to have this feeling of clarity, this feeling arise, and then to put your mind single-pointedly on that experience or that feeling. And that's where the actual realizations of the Buddha's teachings can start to happen. So once again, this also has different levels of understanding too. And when we're meditating, bodhicitta has many beautiful analytical meditations to help us expand our thinking in a very profound way. And emptiness takes a much more longer, patient, conceptual pondering just to get used to even questioning how we perceive things. So different teachings of the Buddha require different levels of hearing and thinking and meditating, and they all kind of go together as like building blocks. The point is with Geshe-la is that never to give up wanting to understand, never giving up wanting to experience, and hopefully one day to realize either spontaneous bodhicitta, the wisdom realizing emptiness, but to develop a curiosity about them. And when you first begin to listen to the teachings, there's a real temptation to be discouraged, because the longer you hear them, the more honest we are with ourselves that we really don't know a lot. And so there's this wanting to get discouraged rather than to increase the curiosity and the willingness to just take the time, to be patient, to rejoice in what we do understand. And that will help to carry us along in the long term to be able to realize these sometime, in a lifetime in the future. So to never be content, to try and just always have that curiosity, always have the willingness to expand. And then the last one, which I think is the most difficult of the general suggestions, is he says, never, or to the best of our ability, for any cause should we abandon any sentient being. So this one I have, because we are all under the control of our self-centered thought, who thinks this suggestion is not only impossible, but it's crazy. That it's all about me, that I'm the first and foremost important being in the whole world, and others can kind of fall to the wayside and be, we can think about them sometime in the future. But by hearing, thinking, and contemplating on bodhicitta, on emptiness, on all the Buddha's teachings, this suggestion over a period of time will sound not only crazy, but it will sound very possible. Never to abandon any living being, no matter who they are, no matter what they do, no matter what they think, that we will always be there for them, wishing only to benefit. And so that is the general suggestions for generating bodhicitta, and hopefully you have found this somewhat helpful.